did it. Hi, folks. Larry Rolla here. I'm back with my two friends that helping me out while I recuperate. I know I look like a ghost, but my friend Joe and my buddy Fred. Hi, guys.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
All right. We were gonna put. I had a problem putting Freddie's show on. He had an interesting conversation today with a couple of horse people, but I couldn't figure out how to get it on. So we're just gonna talk about it. But first, I think first we should mention and send our condolences to this kid, Hunter Myers. Yeah. What a shame. What a good look. What a good kid. They say he was really a good driver, and it's shame. And I believe that that's his son, and that's his fiance there. And I think what happened to him was somebody told me I got a call today. And they said that he was sitting last in the race, and he was. Do you know anything about it, Freddie?
That's what I heard also. You know, Dave Pallone's horse made a break up in the front, and then it just caused a chain reaction, and he pulls out, and another horse pulls out, and you go into them, and six horses went down total. So,
and what they said, he had brain damage. Was that it?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's what I heard.
So some horse's foot went right through the helmet.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how his head hit the ground. You just remember, when Billy Houghton, when we lost Billy Houghton, he had gone up in the air and he came down on the back of his head, and that's what caused Billy to die. But I don't know where the head injury occurred on here. Nobody's really said that.
When Dave Dunkley,
it's a horrible thing. Horrible.
Yeah.
When Dave Dunkley passed away, his
oh my gosh, yeah,
stepped on. That was terrible. I was there that night.
I had breakfast with Dave that morning up at Yonkers. We were both stabled up at Yonkers, and so you go to the track kitchen. We had breakfast together that morning. I was like totally shocked to hear of Dave's passing.
Yeah, I was right there. I was sitting on the rail by the Roosevelt, and by the paddock judge's office outside, and we ran on the track, and
that was another one. If I'm not mistaken, was the back of the head that he hit. Correct.
Well, the horse stepped on him. On him.
I didn't know that the horse stepped on him. I really didn't know that.
Yeah. I saw him. I hate to say it, but his brain was on the track. It was crushed. The back of his head, side of his head. We put a towel.
I tried to get.
We used a towel, and we just put that over. We didn't know what to do, but he was gone already.
I tried to get a film of the race, but they're not. They didn't.
No, they shut them down.
Yeah.
Yeah, this kid Anthony Manzella, he gave me a call today, and he was telling me about. He's trying to get the film too, but I don't think they're going to release it. It's probably going to be lawyers looking into this whole thing, and I guess that tape will never be released. I don't know. It's a tough thing. I remember one night at Monticello, right at the 5/8 pole, Ronnie and it was a wreck. Ronnie went down. The horse. He's so lucky. The horse split the helmet, hit him in the head. He split the helmet in half, and all Ronnie got was like a little nick, cut on his head. Or I guess the horse probably wasn't going at full speed. It was probably one of the things where he was down and just trashing and but them horses, you know what it's like. I'll tell you, for those of you that don't know, that never got kicked by a horse, it's basically like if you lay on the ground and you have somebody come with a sledgehammer and just come and hit you in the head with a sledgehammer. That sounds like extreme, but it's not.
No, that's accurate.
It's not. Just let somebody, and if you don't have the helmet on, you'll see what happened to like Dave Dunkley and that other kid. There was another kid. My brother told me, because my brother was in Delaware. This was about 3-4 years ago, where the horse's foot hit his face and his face come right out the back of his head. I mean, it's serious stuff.
Anthony Coletta, and he got hurt very bad, and Al Belote died. And
Yeah.
Henry Filion too. So
Henry had internal bleeding. He refused the ambulance.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he died in his sleep that night.
Internal bleeding, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
All right, Freddie, I gotta ask you. I gotta ask you about something. If you want to talk about it, the saving the horses. I know that you're trying to get that passed, right?
Right. That's a safe act. Save Americans' forgotten equines. That's the new bill currently.
Okay. Now, if you're successful in doing that, and if you're successful in doing that, are you the guy that's going to place the horses, or just make that just that's going to be the new law or the new rule that they
the rule would be that it would bar the export and transport of horses for shipment for human consumption, for slaughter for human consumption. And it would stop it from shipping any place in the U.S. or going to Canada or Mexico or even Japan, because it's in that bill now to stop it from the live exports too. And so that would just end, this. And currently right now, we have about 20,000 horses that are being shipped yearly for slaughter to Canada and Mexico. And it's a cruel, cruel death. It's just cruel. I mean, it's not like the cows and stuff like that. When they go to put the bolts into horses' heads, the horses move, they miss, they hit the eyes. It's just awful. It's just an awful death. It shouldn't be brought on any animal or anything. So
I think I seen a film about how it's done. I couldn't believe that it was accurate, but the way you just described it, that's what I saw. A horse going in, like locked in the stall, going forward, and a big sludge hammer comes down, hits him right between the eyes. And if they miss, if the horse turns his head, you're right. But let me ask you another question. Once this goes into effect, where are these horses going to go?
Well, let's look at it this way. We started out in about 2012, we had 180,000 horses that were being shipped and exported for slaughter. And now we're down to 20,000. And the horses have been absorbed into the industries, into the markets. There has not been any horses running around dying and starving all over the place like it was threatened to happen. The ASPCA has identified that they have like 1.2 million homes for these horses. So if we get them out of these kill pens, which is just extortion, they're out there basically targeting the harness horses and the thoroughbreds. If we get them out of there, it would bring the market down to a fair price where many, many homes could pick up these horses rather than spending like $1,000 or $2,000, whatever these extortion places are doing. You'd probably get them down to $200-300, and there'd probably be a lot more homes for these horses to find with regular families.
The thing is the zoning laws with the property, that's the issue. To be allowed to have horses on property.
I was happy to hear what Freddie just says. Freddie just says that the ASPCA and probably other animal rights groups, they check up on these horses, because I'll tell you, if you're going to save that many horses and they're going to have to be dispersed in the United States between farms or people that have these organizations that save these horses, they're going to have to be watched, because they're going to be overloaded with horses. The paddocks, if they don't have enough land, the paddocks are going to go from grass to dirt real quick. You're going to have to, who's going to castrate the stud horses, and who's going to watch these horses that after 16, 17, 18, they're half founded, or horses that really should be put down. All of this stuff has to be monitored, in the event that Freddie's successful, and I hope he is, because
Me too.
as long as they're monitored and the ones that should be put down are put down, humanely, then that's all right. The other problem I see, if just to play devil's advocate, is that there's 10 major countries in the world, and we talked about this before, Freddie, that survive on horse meat, and that's from, I think Italy was the biggest one, and I don't know who disagreed with that, but they looked it up. I think it was you, Joe.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
Mexico, France, Sweden, Indonesia, Poland, China, Belgium. I mean, all these countries, they depend on this. I don't know what they're going to do.
I'm going to jump in here, but when you get into the European Union and you start going into the European countries, they have specifically horses that are bred for slaughter. They're not part of the commercial horses or the race horses, which have had medications in them, and so their horses that they're breeding for slaughter are totally different than the horses that, say our horses. That technically any horse that's ever received butazolin is totally eliminated from being a food product. I mean, and then you start looking at some of the other medications that are in our horses, and Joe, you look at the labels there, not intended for human or animal for human consumption. I saw that all the time.
Right. I was thinking about that. What about all the medications and
right? And so,
what are these countries doing with these horses that are shipped there? They're buying them, they're taking them. What are they doing with them?
Well,
okay, first of all, they're in Canada. They're slaughtering the horses in Canada and sending them the raw meat. They're not sending them the horses. They're sending them the meat of the horses. They're not sending the horses. Now, now on the live exports going to Japan, that's a different story. They're actually shipping the horses over to Japan that are live. They put them in those crates and ship them over, and even that one's just like, they can't even fit in the crates, and that's ridiculous. But getting back to like the European Union, so a lot of the things that basically helped to end horse slaughter and the export of the horse meat was that in the European Union, in Canada, they put a residency requirement. So horses that are shipped from Canada have to have a residency requirement. They have to have been in Canada for 6 months before they can be slaughtered. And that's basically to get a lot of the drugs out of their system and so forth. And so that basically ended a large export of horse meat going to Canada. In Mexico, the European Union just totally banned all horse meat from Mexico because of the cruelty of the way that they were executing the horses. And so that basically had some drastic effects on the elimination of the horse meat being shipped and the horses being slaughtered.
You know what I hope, Freddie? I really hope this. I really mean it. I hope that this bill passes, and I hope that unlike the political appointees that they appointed to all of these racetracks and different positions that destroyed harness racing and almost thoroughbred racing, I hope they appoint you as head of this whole situation, because you certainly know.
Larry, you must not like me.
No, I mean, you're fighting for it. You've been fighting for that and trying to save harness racing for the last 4 or 5 years on your own dime that I know of. I don't know how many years before that. So why not?
We actually started, believe it or not, we started in 2009 with the Roosevelt Raceway reunion. That's when it all started. And that's when I was made aware of the fact through the Standardbred Retirement Foundation that our horses were being slaughtered. I never, ever knew that before then. And that's when it all started. And that's when we started basically working to try and end horse slaughter. And we started trying to save the sport at the same time.
I remember that every weekend there were 2 or 3 Amish guys come to each track and just buy up all the horses
after the qualifiers.
Yeah, and it was never a thought in anybody's mind, where are these horses going? And I'm so happy that as you get older, you get a little wiser, you start thinking more, and you say, oh my God, whatever happened to that horse? Where did he wind up? And now you see some of these horror stories that these horses who won millions of dollars in purse money are in kill pens and like nobody cares.
It makes me sick because I go back and I think how many horses that I trained going back into the 70s and 80s that ended up in it's being slaughtered that I don't know about and never even thought that could ever happen. I always thought that our horses would be retired to become show horses, to become police horses. And I just never thought that they would be slaughtered. I just never thought that. And my thought on the Amish was that, you send the horse to the Amish and the horse takes them to church every Sunday. I found that was a total lie because the horses end up, it's like a prison sentence of hard work.
Yeah. The only ones they keep are the big black ones.
Big
Got to be
black
big and black. Yeah. And all the rest of them, they just killed. I learned about that way later. I'm glad I didn't know about it earlier because it would have drove me crazy and I would have been some kind of vigilante or something, doing something to try to save them. But it's just tough. You see these commercials. I guarantee you one thing. You see these commercials on television about the dogs that should be saved. At least the dogs that are lucky enough to be put in a pound, at least they're at least they're if nobody gets them, at least they're killed in a humane way, not the way horses are. But if you ever did a commercial and put it on the same way the ASPCA does, and by the way, I think the head guy at the ASPCA makes about $1 million a year.
Probably more.
Probably more, yeah. And but if you ever made a commercial about the horses in the field that are being neglected and just laid down to die, and that's the first thing. If you're ever in that position, that's the first thing you should do. Just take some of these horror films that are out there or situations that are out there about these horses that are laying in a paddock of dirt and mud through the winter and everything else, and they're not even strong enough. It gets me sick even talking about it. But I guarantee you, as much money as the ASPCA makes and these send $19 a month or whatever, you do the same thing for horses, and you can really make a big you can, because I know that there's a lot of people that try to do this. And in fact, I'll tell you, when I was hanging out with Paul Savino, that actor, he has a daughter that has a farm, and she was constantly calling him up for money every month. He'd say, "Oh, here she is, another 5 or 10,000, another 5, 10," because she had to buy more land because the more horses you got, the more grass they would eat. You just needed more land. And then, like I said, you try to save the stud horses. You have to castrate them before you can put them in a population. And then you got to maintain them. You got to, it's not maintenance free. They got to be maintained. And she wasn't getting enough support. And her father basically supported her probably right up until his death. But I think that if you were ever in charge of that, Freddie, you should make a commercial like that and put it on television. And a lot of heavyweight people with a lot of money. There were some of them that are right on your show that could at least put up the money to fund a 30-second commercial and just have people send the money in, and you'd be on your way. And then something really, really could be done, because so far from listening to your podcast and from listening to all the phone calls I get during the week, trying to save racing is very, very, very difficult, only because of the decoupling and the organizations that own most of the racetracks. It's a complete losing proposition. And I think all your guys on the panel that you have on every week have it just about right, even though they're going to keep trying. And I hope they do succeed. But what you're talking about now is a major problem. And to me, it's just as critical as the dogs commercials that you see. And I think it's even more sickening because you're going to see a lot of these horses just laying in a paddock that can't even get up. And some of these horses that are out there with that are founded and everything, and that just cruel stuff that need a lot of help. And I think a commercial like what everybody's doing now would get you the money to do it. Okay, that's enough.
I don't know if they would allow that. It would be so graphic and so like people will get sick to see that. I don't know if
Well,
they would allow that as a commercial.
you know, it's something that it's something that has to be done. They're going to allow it. They will allow it. Probably, I don't know how you would get these pictures unless they're already taken from the farms where these horses are on that are being abused and stranded, because them people that own them are going to wind up going to jail. So I don't know how you work around that, but I'm sure you could. And if you have a problem, Freddie, just call me. All right, let me ask you another question.
Well, before you go on and move on to another topic, I'm going to say like a few years ago, Michelle Crawford, Stacy Hancock from the Thoroughbreds, Stone Farms, they've won a couple of Kentucky Derbies and stuff. But both of them were looking to try and set up facilities to cremate horses, to have them euthanized and cremated in certain states and stuff like that, to set that up for the older horses and stuff, the horses that really that they were at the end of their lives and stuff like that, and to humanitarily basically euthanize them and then have cremation facilities there to cremate them. And that sort of just fell by the wayside. And that was I'm going to say that was 2-3 years ago.
Why would that? I think that's a great idea. Why would that fall by the wayside?
I think it was finances, but I'm not 100% sure.
But you know what it's like. I mean, if you have a heart, everybody says, people absolutely. I take my dog to the vet, and every time I'm in there happens to be another dog there, and they bring their whole family just to have this. You know, when the dog is going to be put down because he's old or sick, and they're crying and crying and crying. And that's how close people get to the same thing with horses. I have film of a guy in a hospital bed dying of cancer, and they brought the horse up. It was the first time he got up and he smiled and he petted the horse and everything. Same exact thing with Gandolfini, the guy from The Sopranos,
right. Yeah.
with his father. When he brought his father to me, his father must have weighed 80 pounds. I think I did a whole podcast on it.
You did.
And Gandolfini called me up and he says, "Listen, my father hasn't eaten in 3 weeks now, and he's really bad shape. And but the only thing he responds to is he loves horses. Can I bring him to the barn?" I said, "Sure." And I brought him to the barn, and I think I did a podcast. It's in my book. The pictures.
Yeah, you definitely did.
Yeah, you saw it.
Yeah, that was really nice.
When they brought him out, a Porsche Cayenne pulls up with an electric lift that comes down, and there he is sitting in a wheelchair, Mr. Gandolfini, his father, and he must weigh 80 pounds. His chin was in his chest, and I walked over to him. He had all the handlers around him, and I said, "Hello, Mr. Gandolfini. My name is Larry Rolla." No response. Didn't even look up. Nothing. And I put my hand on his shoulder, and all I felt was like a skeleton. It was terrible. So I told the groom, I won't go through the whole story, but I told the groom to go get a horse called Osmosis that was very kind, and all he wanted to do was, he loved people. He just wanted to be petted and given an apple. So I made him bring the horse out, and I put the horse's nose right in his lap. And within 5 seconds, he lifted his head, then he lifted his hand, then he started petting the horse. And within a minute, he started talking to the horse and asking me what his name was. And within 10 minutes, I had him in a bike, a jog cart. I had him hooked up, walking around and everything else. And people love horses like that. And I really believe a commercial, the same way the ASPCA does it, that you just got to get this bill passed. I hope it gets passed, Freddie, because you'd be doing a great service to a lot of I went down to Parks Racetrack, and I seen some of I was down there for about a month, and I seen some of the horses that were down there that years ago, and you look back on their chart, and years ago they were decent horses racing at all the best racetracks, and now from say 100,000 claim, I'll use claimant prices as an example. from 100,000 claimer to 60 to 50 to 40 to 30. Now they're in a 5,000 claimer at Parks Racetrack, full of lumps and bumps and this and that and everything else. And it's sad. I had to leave. I couldn't stay there. I got stalls on a farm, me and my friend and Peter, and I had to leave. I just couldn't handle it. And I told Peter, I says, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. If I can't do this, I just can't do it. And then when they get to that point, that's when they start loading them up with any kind of drug that would make the vet pass them, and it just gets bad. And I hope that your bill gets passed, and I hope they put you in charge of running it, and I'm sure you'll do a great job. And I hope you get $2.5 million a year salary. And don't forget, I'm your agent. Okay.
I'll take $500,000.
When are they supposed to pass this or attempt to pass it?
Okay, it's in committee right now in both the House and Senate. The House bill is HR 1661, and the Senate bill is Senate 775. And so the House bill, I happened to look at it today. It had originally had 104 co-sponsors. Today it has 110 co-sponsors, so we gained 6. I don't know who they were because I didn't look at who they were. I just saw the number today. The Senate bill is still early, so it's only got like two sponsors. We're going to be working on the Senate side and House side on the 25th, 26th, and 27th. We're working on the committee members. It's in committee in both bills. So the committee has to vote to put it on the floor for a vote. And so what we're trying to do is get the committee to put it on the floor for a vote. If they put it on the floor for a vote in both houses, it will pass. Yeah, but we have to get it out of committee. We have to get it out of committee.
Is there a main? I don't know nothing about the government. Is there a main guy that you would go see or that would be in charge of putting it on?
Well, the chair of the committee, and so the committees are divided. I think it's like 14 people on each committee. And so we're setting up the Mitch McConnell's on the committee, so we got a meeting with him. And then I have to look at my notes over here real quick. Then we have Ben Ray Lujan. We have a meeting with him. He's also a co-sponsor on the bill. And I don't have all the appointments in right now. I have about 5 or 6 of them in, but we'll have about 20 to 28 appointment meetings and stuff between the 25th and the 27th. So we're working on that really, really hard. I'm going to be doing a lot of work with the Jockey Club on that. So Sean Smealy's coming in. He's their lobbyist. That's American Continental Group, and Sean is one of the top lobbyists in Washington D.C. And he used to be the White House advisor to the first George Bush presidency. So he's a pretty good guy. I like him, and he actually grew up, I think, in Saratoga, and used to attend the harness races all the time with his father.
That's a
good for you, Freddie. Freddie, you're a good man. You know, guys, those of you who are listening, these two guys here, Joe and Freddie, they're two of the most legitimate, nice people, genuinely nice people that I ever met. I didn't know Joe personally when I was in the horse business, but I heard a lot about him when he first came on the show. I asked a lot about him, and he had a problem years and years back about similar to mine, but he was smart enough and strong enough to straighten his whole life out. And you could see by that cross around his neck that he just changed his life completely around and deserves a whole lot of credit. And
I thought he put the cross on to come on the show to keep vampires away.
No.
It's been on for years and years and years.
He's a
Joe, you know that.
I know, of course.
He's a good guy, Freddie. Now, Freddie, what is this? What is this? I just saw this. Say something. USTA integrity tip line. What is that all about? You know?
I have no clue. So
say something.
I know that
about looking for terrorism and stuff. So they're using the slogan. In other words, after 9/11, the slogan in New York was see something, say something. In other words, you see something suspicious, report it. Tell a police officer. Let them know what you saw. So they're just using that same slogan to protect the horses.
I don't know if they've had any results on it or anything like that. I have not heard. But our show this week was about the investigation of the sanctions that they brought against the 6 members on a farm, Diamond Creek Farm, and like Adam Bowden, Sean, and Joel Benson, Debbie Surick. But it was just sort of like it was just kind of weird the way that it played out. And so Andy did a good job leading the show. We had Mary Brown on, and I was questioned on the show by Andy, and I jumped in with a couple of questions. And Bob Marks had some input to put on it. But it was just like, one of the questions that was just really bizarre was, okay, they're a breeding farm. And so you have a broodmare come to you. And many people don't know that the owner of the broodmare has to be licensed or has to be in good standings with the USTA, and nobody knew that. But then the other issue that came in, a lot of the horses that were involved were in the ownership of Debbie Surick, and she wasn't sanctioned, and they didn't pull her license until 2024. And so how can you fault them for breeding a horse when she's listed as an owner? And it's just totally
Did they resolve
insane.
that, Freddie? Did they resolve that question?
Not that I know. Not that I know of. Adam paid a $28,000 fine. Sean, his fine was like $7,000. I forget what Diamond Creek's fine was, but it's just like, the other thing is, I have never heard of the USDA sanctioning anybody.
I never heard of it.
I never heard of it. This is the first time.
It reminds me of when years ago, I guess it was USTA or New York State Racing Commission, maybe the Racing Commission. They formed. They were no more spots for judges or for the racetracks. So they formed a committee of all FBI agents, and they called it Harness Track Security, and all former FBI agents. And they come to me one day, and after investigating me for a long time, we got to be almost friends. They'd follow me to the Concord at night and everything. And they come to me one day and they says, listen, Ralph Gigani, and he's living at your house, and Lou Gigani, you're best friends with Lou Gigani, and what could you tell me about? You ever see their father at the racetrack? And I says, do me a favor. Just do me a favor. Just go fuck yourself. And that's just what I told him. I said, it's just unbelievable. They're just looking to dig up dirt. And the same thing, Ralph Gigani and Lou Gigani, with the time when I was with them, they were the most legitimate, nicest guys. Me and Lou were together every single day. Ralphie lived with me. They were the nicest guy. And the father, Mario, he was like a father to me. He was the greatest guy. What they did when they got in their car and they went wherever they went has nothing to do with me. All I know is that the kids were 100% legitimate. Louis, I think, is doing very well. He opened up a couple of restaurants, and poor Ralphie died. I think he died.
Does Louis still have the limousine company too?
No,
I think they went out of business when COVID happened, because a lot of limousine companies went out of business, and I think he sold most of the limousines. So I don't believe he has it anymore. And Louis basically retired. He has that. Yeah, I think he has a couple of real nice restaurants. His son runs one of them, and I think he's just taking it easy.
I think it's in White Plains, New York, and one of them, or something.
And poor Ralphie died. He was such a good kid. But the other thing is, what I don't understand, Joe Feraldo is the head of the USTA, right? Is that right? Now, Joe Feraldo,
he's the chairman. He's the chairman of the board.
Now, Joe Feraldo, even though I know that there's problems with the horsemen, with Joe Feraldo, but I don't pay much attention to that because I remember the meeting, and you remember it too, Freddie, when F. Lee Bailey, the attorney, had the meeting in Gangwar, and he says, "I quit because horsemen, you never stick together." And how could when the horsemen at the same racetrack, in the same racetrack, don't stick together, how do you expect to ever fix anything from racetrack to racetrack and state to state? It's impossible. It'll never happen. But I just want to say one thing. Joe Feraldo come to me, oh God, it had to be 1978, 79, 80, something like that. And Charles Slutsky, who owned Monticello Raceway, he had a fair license just to drive in fairs, fool around in qualifiers or whatever. So he called me up the morning of they were going to race at Goshen, and it was a trot race because they were all afraid to drive paces because of the hobbles if they make a break. So they all wanted trotters. So I put Charles Slutsky on a horse. I forgot the horse's name. I should remember it because Joe remembers it. And Charles calls me up that morning of the race. He says, "Look, I can't make it. I have a very important meeting with the commission. I can't make it." And right after that, who calls me up? Joe Feraldo. At that time, he was just an attorney. He was defending horsemen. And he says, "Listen, I know Charles is not coming in. Could I drive that horse?" And so I said, "Sure, you could drive." He said, "Tell me about him." I says, "Joe, just don't fall off. Don't want to put him on the gate, off the gate, race him any way we want. He'll stay trotting. He won't make a break, and you'll win the race." And he was a little nervous. I think it might have been his first drive ever. And sure enough, he won the race. And do you know that every year from then until now, had to be 40 years, Joe Feraldo never forgot that. He calls me up on my birthday, and Viking Dart, that was the name of the horse. And he says, "Thank you very much," and everything else. Now, Joe, if you're listening, and I'm sure you're not, why don't you do something? I heard that you made a tremendous amount of money fining all of these people. Now, I don't know if them fines were justified or not, but I want to tell you something. There's a lot of horsemen up in Monticello that are starving to death. I don't think they raced in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, because the track been caving in different spots and just unsafe to race. Why don't you help them guys out? Why don't you do something? It's New York State. These guys are starving to death up there. It's bad enough they race for nothing, and half of them are living in the tack rooms up there. Now they've run out of feed, they run out of hay, they run out of money, they run out of everything. Why don't the USTA, being that from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, it's expanding to now it's like they want to take over the whole industry. Well, why don't you start off by, I don't know how you're going to do it. Get one of your millionaire friends or something, or ask Horseman, or ask the other racetracks around town. Chip in a little bit to help them guys up there. Send trailer loads of hay and straw and feed up there. Help them poor guys. Why don't you do something like that? I don't get it. That's why I hate to get
They definitely have the money to do it, and they should think about that. You know what I heard today? I heard that the management of Monticello Raceway said if there's anything negative being put on Facebook or any social media, that you'll be barred from racing here. About the track being closed and the conditions up there, that you're not allowed to post anything.
Well, I can tell you,
it's unconstitutional.
I spent a lot of years up there, and they don't have a whole lot of money up there. Management don't have a whole lot of money, and that track was maintained as best as they could for what they had and and the money that they had to fix it. And it's certainly not anybody's fault. If anybody's at the fault, it's the fault of the management that didn't scrape enough money to just redo that whole racetrack. How do you leave these poor guys racing $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 claimers 40, 50 times a year to make $25,000, $30,000 and leave them without racing, and there's no place else for them to go?
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, have you been up to Monticello at all lately?
Lately, no. I
Okay,
haven't
because
been there.
I was told that the main track has a sinkhole,
Yeah,
and I'm like, a
that's why
sinkhole.
it's
I mean,
closed. Yeah.
and so my suggestion was, I put this up on one of these posts. I said, well, why don't you just move the races over to the training track?
Well, the training track is just as bad, Freddie, because the training
That was the answer that came back. They said, my God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how in the world could you have two tracks and you just let them both deteriorate that bad?
Well,
I mean, like,
it's always been bad. Always.
it's that it was.
I remember training up in Monticello and both tracks were like training on velvet. So
Yeah, well,
that was 40 years ago. Yeah, and I was stable there, and I had Barn A right next to the training track. But the winters up there, the winters got to the point where I had to leave. The winters was so bad for so long, and these tracks, and every time it would thaw out, you get another sinkhole, they'd fix it, another sinkhole, they fix it. But then when everything started to happen and there was very little money and they were struggling just to stay afloat, they didn't have the money to do the right thing with the racetrack. And that whole thing has to be dug up. From what I understand, I don't know. I haven't spoke to Anthony, the track guy up there, but from what I understand is they have some people coming up there now that are supposed to fix it. I hope so. But why couldn't somebody like Joe Feraldo, Joe, and if you're listening, this is your pal Larry. I'm not mad at you, even though you're mad at some other friends of mine, but I kind of stay neutral. Why don't you see if there's something that the USDA can do to help them poor guys up there? All right, I said enough. What else do you want to talk about?
I said it a while back. I raced in Monticello at another time. This happened years ago, where they put up a wire and wood, those roll-up fences, and it was the whole second turn, and it was out like to the 4 or 5 hole, and you had to go around that while we were racing.
Yeah,
But the whole thing caved in, next to the rail. So you had to go around it, and we raced.
There was a big dip right by the paddock where the horses come onto the track. Right, that's right around the quarter pole or the 3/4 pole. There's a big dip there, and then from what I understand, and they were
that's exactly where it was.
It's just a sad situation. You know what's worse than that? What's worse than that is the tracks that could afford to maintain their tracks pertaining to the banks and the condition of the track that don't. Monticello don't have the money to do that. Why don't Joe, if there's any way that you could help some of this money. I heard you got a lot of money in fines or something. Take some of that money and send trailer loads of hay and straw and feed to them guys, and give them give each trainer 500, 1,000 a week or something. Do something to help them poor guys. All right, what else you want to talk about?
What are we going to talk about?
Oh, we could talk about anything. Let's see what we have here. Oh,
Finkelstein.
You know who that is? That's Alan Finkelstein. That's his wife. That's Bobby Parker, who owned the Concord Hotel, and that's his wife. Yeah. I was the only horseman invited to Alan Finkelstein's wedding. I'm going to say something now that I wonder if I should say it. Everybody involved is dead, but maybe I shouldn't say it. Nah, I better not say it. About why they split up and why Alan went from Monticello to Florida. Alan left Monticello Racetrack and left John Manzi in charge. And I was very, very close with Alan. And Alan was very close with Steinbrenner. That's how come I was able to get Steinbrenner's horses, but I gave them right to Debbie. But Alan was friendly with Steinbrenner. He was friendly with all the New York Yankees. They all used to come up almost every night when they was training down there and sit at his table, and I would be there. And but Alan left because of his wife. I better not get into that.
No, they probably got kids might be watching it.
Well, they had 2 kids. One was a boy and a girl. The girl got killed riding a motorcycle, and the boy is I think the boy had some kind of mental problem, I think. But still, it wasn't nice. I better not say nothing. I get myself in enough trouble. What is this?
I'll tell you a story, Mike. in 1979 on Halloween. I was racing at Freehold. I just went on my own as a trainer maybe a month before. And I won my first race. And I was so excited. You know, it was my first win ever. And it was at Freehold Raceway. I had the rail. The horse named Wintermore Knight. So the horse won the race. Eddie Lohmeyer was driving him. And I went to the winner's circle proud as a peacock and all excited and everything. And I went to Eddie. Eddie, what do you think? The horse was good. Yeah. He was really good, Eddie. Where should I put him? What class should I put him in next week? I thought he was going to say, like, yeah, put him in a 12.5 or a 15. He was in a 10. So he said, what class was this? I said, 10 clamor. He thought about it. He says, I would put him in an 8 next week. And he just, like, tore me right down. I was so...
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah, but he was right. He was right. He was a sharp guy, Eddie.
Do you know that I think I was stable at Monticello Raceway right next to Eddie Lohmeyer's father. The first year I got up there, I think it was 1971. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. And if Eddie Lohmeyer is listening, I'm sure he'll correct me. And we're good friends. Eddie Lohmeyer, I think he just got out of college or got out of the service or someplace. Anyway, he disappeared. And he had a horse called Cry Jimmy. Ain't it crazy how I remembered his name? Cry Jimmy. And I had an empty stall. I think I gave him the stall for a horse called Cry Jimmy. His father was a good guy. His father taught me, he says, never run if you can walk and never stand if you could sit. That was his father. Okay, let's see. You see this? I'm not going to get into this story, but this is when they had the fashion contest, the fashion show at Freehold Raceway in 1970. And because of this situation here, let's see, because of that situation, they made me, that's Joe Rizzo. Remember the driver, Joe Rizzo, the trainer?
Yeah.
That's Joe Rizzo. That's
it's hard to see. It's a small picture.
And this is me, and they picked me to be the model for the new line of men's clothing. And then when the Freehold guy, McClune called me in, and they had the president of Philip Morris, I think. They
Marlboro
said they wanted me to be the Marlboro man. I won't go into that story. We'll keep going through pitches. This naturally is, you know who these guys are. That's Joe Pesci. That's Frankie Valli.
Yeah,
that's
the Four Seasons.
Yeah. Okay. Freddie, if there's something you want to talk about, let's go. You know what we'll do? Let's see if there's any questions here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Angela, hello, Larry, Joe, and Freddie. Hope you're all doing well.
Hi. Oh, Angelique.
Oh, that's an Angel. That's
Angel IQ.
That's Angel IQ. Right. Okay. What's this one? David, the 3 wise men of harness racing. God bless, guys.
Thank you. Same to
you. Thank you, David. Okay. Rest in peace, Hunter. Yep. What a shame.
Sure is.
Okay, Steve, they said his head hit the track. Well, that's probably what happened because they told me that. Well, you said it too, Freddie. He was sitting dead last, and his horse, probably got flipped backwards and hit the back of his head, just hit the ground. And some of these standardbred racetracks, I don't know about the Meadows. I haven't been there in 40 years, but they're stone dust or whatever with a 1/2-inch cushion probably, and it's just like hitting blacktop. So that's it. What a shame. Okay. Gary D. Freddie, last week you mentioned Jake Chapman was a friend. Dad had great farm near Buffalo. He loved to party.
Yes, he did.
I knew Jake as kids. We used to there used to be a whole group of us that when our dads were racing horses, and it usually was on Saturday nights, and I'm going to say like we were about 9 or 10 years of age, and we would all come into the paddock, and mostly at Yonkers, and we would play cards every night, and we would hang out with each other, we'd play cards, and that's what we did as kids while our dads were racing horses. And so Jake was part of that group of Gerard McDonald, Peter Houghton, the Cruz boys, myself. I can go down the line on a couple of others in there that I just don't remember the names right now. But that's what we did. And mostly it was on Saturday nights. That was like family night at racing. So
I got a story about Jake Chapman. I wanted to kill him, but I didn't. I bought a brand new Chevy Silverado. This is in the 70s when I worked for his father. And a brand new Kingston 2-horse trailer. So I'm at the track, and me and Jake were friends. And he said to me, "Joe, you got to do me a big favor." I said, "What's up, Jake?" He says, "Can I borrow your truck and trailer?" I said, "Jake, I just got it yesterday, a week ago. It was brand new." And I figured he was going to say, "I got to go, to a farm in Westbury or wherever." I said, "Well, where you got to go? I'll take you." He says, "No," he says, "I need it for a day." "Where you going?" He had to go to Buffalo. Okay. And me, being a nice guy, I said, "All right, Jake." I says, "Just be careful. It's brand new." Well, a week went by. I called him every day. He said he'd be back in a couple of days. 3 days, 4 days, no answer. Don't call me. I called his mother up. Called Mel Samora. I went to the track looking for him. Nothing. So about 10 days go by. Still nobody heard from Jake. He got my truck, my trailer, and I'm living in Muttontown at the time. And I get back one day, and in the circle where I live, there's a circle. And I see a big tow truck coming down the road with my truck and trailer hooked to it. He blew the engine on my truck. And I never saw him again. He left it at my house. I never saw it again. And I was fuming, man, because, I did him. At least tell me what happened. I never saw him again. The only time I saw him was at the Chapman Memorial Race. And I wanted to jump over the rail and strangle him. Still, this is years later. And but I didn't, because his mother was there, his sisters were there, But it was a terrible thing he did. I couldn't believe he did that to me. And
all right, here's a guy, G-Man. He said he saw the race live, and he went absolutely flying in the air like a rag doll. It was terrible to watch. I'm sure it was. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay. So sad when someone gets hurt in these accidents. God bless his family. We all agree. Bev, hello, Larry, Joe, Freddie, Delaware here. Do any of you have stories about Mr. Eddie Davis? Not really, because most of my career I was in Monticello and at the Meadowlands for a short period of time, but mainly Monticello and Pompano. So I know that he was considered a hall. I think he's in the Hall of Fame. I think, but
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But he was one of the leading guys down there in Delaware for a long time, and they said he was a real good driver.
He was on our show about 6-7 months ago. So
okay, here's Angel again. That's so sad. Yes, it is. You know who we're missing tonight? Sundance. I don't know where she is. John Ramsey, we used to sell horses to the Amish after they were done racing if we could. Yep. Not only you, everybody back then. They used to come with trailers.
to the qualifiers.
Here's Eric. Larry, I asked you last week, but not answered. I watch the Animal Cracker on YouTube. He is a chiropractor for animals, especially horses. Any of you have used this to help horses? Well, I could just tell you this. I never heard of Animal Cracker, and I'm sure that this is not a trick question or a joke. I'm sure that there because there are people that go around. But I remember. Now this is back in the 60s and 70s. When the guys that couldn't make it as trainers or whatever, they used to come around with their little rubber mallets and everything else. I'm sure you remember that one kid that used to come.
Smiley.
Smiley.
You remember Smiley?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to interrupt here. Smiley actually came down and met me at one of the at a place when I was speaking at the Capitol a few years ago, or on end in horse slaughter. Smiley was actually there, and I got pictures of us together from that day. And Smiley was doing a lot of the acupuncture, and he was doing astrological charts on horses also at the sale, selling them for $25 a piece.
He would look in their eyes and tell you what's wrong with them.
Yeah, and he had that little thing that he put over them. So
yeah,
and when I was in Delaware, I had Smiley working on a horse and looking at a horse, and he's got this metal thing, and he's got it over the horse's withers, and he's going back and forth. Billy Meyer and Ellis Meyer show up. They came over to visit me, and they basically look, and Billy turns and looks at Ellis and says, "Ellis, he got him a fucking witch doctor."
Yeah. Yep. I think it was just a.
Well, I never used Smiley because
No, I don't believe in that. He came with a mallet, a rubber mallet, and a piece of 2x4, and
yeah. And then they had it was a lot of nonsense going on there. But what I did try once, my dog's getting mad at me because I took him off my lap. What I did try once, there was a vet that came from Canada, and he got me. I believe it's true. He said that every nerve that goes through the horse's body is in the ears.
Yes.
And he could staple. He knew just what nerves to staple. If your horse had a bad right front ankle, he knew just what to staple. So naturally, I says, I got to try this. And I took the worst horses I had, and he put about 5-6 staples in each ear on all these horses. And I couldn't wait for the next morning. Well, the next morning I come in, and I couldn't. Their ears were swollen.
I was going to say they're infected. You couldn't put the bridle over his head.
Yeah, I couldn't get the halter on or off. I couldn't get nothing. And then I had to put each horse. We had to put them to sleep and remove all the staples and all the horses.
I remember that. I didn't do it, but I know people that did, and I remember their ears were all swollen.
I did it. So anyway, Eric, to answer.
How were their feet, Larry?
What's that?
How were their feet?
Their feet. They had a nerve in their feet too. I never tried. I had to take. I couldn't. And it was.
You were distracted by the ears, and you didn't look at the feet.
Well, all right. Anyway, Eric, that's it. I never used the chiropractor. What I did do once, I tried it. I forget what track I was at. I think it might have been in Pompano. I did tie a horse to the railing, and just stood back and chased him and let him try figuring out what straighten out his spine. And but that didn't work neither. But I never used the chiropractor. Okay, let's see. Bruce, God bless the horse racing industry. Very entertaining, and horses are second to no other animal. Well, I don't know about that. Dogs are pretty up there. But Freddie should do what I suggested. Just do a commercial, and it'd be a big money maker. Not only that, but do that, $9.99 a month. You get a couple of thousand people there, and now you have enough money to take a salary for yourself, go around, make sure everything is done.
Yeah, another funny story. When Lucian was going for the Hall of Fame, and we were trying to get Lucian Fontaine into the Hall of Fame, he was very close friends with Rod Gilrard from the Rangers, who was a Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame hockey player. Yeah. And so basically, Lucian didn't make it into the votes, and so Rod is like more pissed than Lucian. He says, "Lucian, do you realize how much money you've lost by not getting into the Hall of Fame?" He says, "I get paid $1,200 every time I speak." And Lucian looks at him and says, "You don't understand. This is harness racing. I'd have to pay to those to go speak any place."
I just found out why my dog wants on my lap. He hears
Go out.
thunder outside. No, it's thunder and lightning.
Oh, okay. You're getting the storm that we just had.
Yeah, and he's scared to death. He's shaking here, but I still got that hole in my stomach, and I can't keep him on my lap.
Larry, do you remember years ago when we needed like Bute or any kind of medication? You remember Gertie Devine in Goshen? She
No.
had a house in Goshen right near the track. She used to sell all medications and syringes and needles and whatever you needed, she had. Do you remember dealing with her?
No, I really never dealt with any of that stuff. My thing was something different. My game, I never really abused the horse with drugs or anything like that.
Larry, I'm talking about Bute or Banamine.
No, I understand, but I never did that. I used the vet for everything. I was more interested in doing other things. Trying to stay alive, Joe.
I got you.
You know what that's all about.
Yeah, I know about that too.
Steve, it's amazing what the outside of a horse does to the inside of a human. I forgot who once said that, but that is so true. That is so true. I told the story many times. I'm not going to tell it again, but when a guy like Larry Kadish or the guy from Spindletop Restaurant, Joe Marsh, Larry Kadish start crying over him because he won Horse of the Year for a $3 plaque with Gay Snell or some horse.
Gay Snell, right?
Yeah, Gay Snell. And talking about Gay Snell, when I was on your show, Freddie, with Billy O'Donnell, Billy O'Donnell says, "Larry, I want to say one thing, Gay Snell. How the hell? He knows so much about every horse at every racetrack in the whole industry. He must just stay home and study everything." Another thing is, I got to get him on a show. I have his phone number. I have to call him up. But if you talk to him, tell him that as soon as I have a few more appointments, doctor appointments, as soon as that's all over, I'm going to get in touch with him. But if you talk to him in the meantime, because he told a friend of his that called me that he would come on the show. I think he told me that too. I don't even remember.
Yeah, but anyway, Billy's a great guy, great friend, great guy. And my Billy O'Donnell story, it's comical. We were qualifying at the Meadowlands, and so I have it's a catch drive for it, and so I'm on this horse, and so as I'm getting onto the horse, the trainer tells me that he put a sideline and bit in the horse's mouth. I said, "Well, how do you react to it?" He says, "I don't know. I just put it on." I said, "Okay." So I go out and scoring the horse down. I can't steer him. I can't steer this horse. This horse is not taken to this bit at all, pulling my guts out. I mean, this horse is just pulling my guts out. So when we turn to go to the gate, she spits the bit. The lines are now loose. She's no longer pulling. I get away fourth with her, and I go into the half. The horse is totally dead, and so everyone just passes me. And this horse is just dead, and I'm just like drifting. And at the Meadowlands, when you come around that last turn, which is where I'm at, I'm coming off the turn, and I can look down and I can see everyone else. They're at the wire. That's how far back I am. Billy O'Donnell comes up alongside me. He says, "Freddie, my horse has made like 20 breaks today, and I'm going to beat you." And as he says that, and we're right at the wire, both of us, like the rest of the race is already pulling up. As we're at the wire, he makes a break and I beat him.
He's a funny guy.
We talk about that because we both remember that. It was just funny as hell. I mean, it was just like, oh, and then here's the best part. When I went to pull this horse up and I turned her around, all of a sudden she's pulling my guts again. And when I get back to the paddock, I'm like leaning back and just hanging on to her. I got my one foot on the stirrup and I'm just hanging on to this mare. The trainer's got her got the line. And I go, "Do you have her? Do you have her?" Yeah, I have her. Yeah, I have her. When I let go of the line, this trainer and horse went right down the road.
Well,
He's a funny guy. And he can talk forever, and he makes a lot of sense. He's a very smart, very sharp guy, very sharp guy. I hope he agrees to come on the show. I think he already did, but maybe I'm wrong. But if you talk to him, Freddie, mention it. I just don't want to make any long-term plans because I still got a bunch of doctor appointments scheduled. Okay, Eric, in a Virginia assisted living home, they use horses in what's called pet therapy. Yep.
Mhm.
They take the residents to the farm to pet therapy. That's true. And that's what you could start too, Freddie. You know, if you're ahead of this thing, this commission, and you could start this kind of stuff.
Well, if you look at our website at ustrots.com, you'll see that we have the veterans program that Robbie Siegelman runs over there. He's out on Long Island, working with all the veterans, and like that's Robbie's numbers up there and so forth like that. Robbie's getting ready to do the March to Zero for the veterans on to prevent suicide. And so he's going to be doing that in New York. That's coming up, I'm going to say, within the next few months. I tried to do it in D.C., and basically the District of Columbia would not allow it. They will not allow horses into the District of Columbia anymore. And I had also tried to do this 1,000 horse march. I had horses coming in from all over the country that we were going to do a march, to end horse slaughter. And here's what they hit me with. I had to have 300 portable johns. The horses were not allowed to be stabled in or shipped into the DC. They had to stay at a farm that was about 10 miles outside of DC, and then they had to be trucked in that day. And then for every hoof print, the park police or whatever, I guess it was the park police, were going to charge me $1 or $10 a footprint for every hoof print left on the ground.
wow.
So that killed that deal.
Quickly.
I just had to open the window for my dog. He's scared to death. It's raining and lightning. He's scared to death, so he's on my lap. Anyway, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I think I mentioned it once. That guy that was in the hospital, and they actually let a horse come in. Okay, let's see.
I got a bookmaker. Oh, who's this?
Just checking in, looking good. Raced with Joe at Yonkers many times. He was tough to beat. Freddie, I remember your father. Okay, that's S. Nance. You know him, Joe?
Yeah, I vaguely, but I remember the name. I'm trying to look at the picture. Yes, I do. How you doing?
Well, he must be my age or your age because he remembers Freddie's father, Billy.
Hold on. Can you guys? Let's see if we can see that.
What's that?
That's an old picture of my father.
Oh,
there
wow.
he is. No helmets. That's a real old picture.
This one's from like 1951 at Yonkers.
1951. I'll tell you a bookmaking story. I spent a lot of time in the Bronx. That's where I grew up pretty much. And there was a million bookmakers. There was OTBs. There was a million bookmakers, Shylock, so I knew them all. And there was a new guy that opened up. His name was Dom, and he had a donut shop. It was a front for a bookmaking place. So what he did was he was advertising that he paid track odds. So I know the guy a little bit, and I introduced myself, and I said, Dom, I'd like to bet with you. And he says, no problem. He says, just come to the office, cash up. I'll pay you right after the race. So I love a horse in the first race. Austin Hope trained the horse. I'll never forget it. Her name was Hot Lips. She was a 15 claiming mare. And to me, there was only one horse in the race that could beat her. And she had the 7-hole. And the horse that I thought might be able to beat her was the 6 horse. I forgot the name of the horse. So what I did, I went to this guy who paid track odds, and I said, Dom, I want a $40 exacta box. 6, 7, Hot Lips and whoever, and I want to wheel Hot Lips in a $40 double, and the other horse $20 wheel. Well, Hot Lips wins the first race and pays $17. The other horse finished second and paid like $4. The exacta come back like $80. Now, at that time, CBS Radio 88, every 20 minutes they give the results of the first race, let's say, and they give the unofficial order of the second race, or the following race that was coming up. So this mare wins, and the second race, Jack Lee comes on and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we got a blockbuster double. Phil Carbone and Mighty Royanne from the 8-hole win the second race at Roosevelt Raceway." The double paid $880. And this guy, he couldn't believe it. Two things I bet, the exacta and the double hit them both. I mean, he went nuts because it put him out of business just about the first week. I think I collected like $15,000 or $18,000 for maybe $200 in bets, something like that, $300 in bets.
You know, here's Gary D says Jake did have a problem with that stuff. Wish you'd known that. Sorry to hear. Yeah, I guess I know that when his father died, he didn't want to take over. He just got out of the horse business, I guess.
Yeah, he had a drug problem.
Dr. Doug Willen. Okay, so I'm sure. Hey, look, what we're talking about with this kid Smiley happened 40 years ago, maybe 50.
Yeah,
and I'm sure since then they've come a long way as far as chiropractic help and everything else. Okay, Bev, wonder why Eddie Davis isn't in the Hall of Fame, 8,600 wins. They'll eventually get to him, I guess. Okay, Eric, Larry, I would love if you could get Walter Case on your show. I'm sure he could fill 2 hours with his stories. Well, we could fill 2 hours with Walter Case stories too, but I will, like I said, once I'm sure I could be here for sure every Thursday, because these two guys here, plus Eddie and plus Anthony and Dominic, they've been helping me, do this, because if I had to do it by myself, they just spark me up. So as soon as I'm able, we're going to contact, with the help of Freddie and everybody else, we'll get Walter Case. I want to get Joe Rico. I want to get O'Donnell. I want to get a whole bunch of guys, and I'll get them. And I know we're going to get Michael LeChance back on. We're going to get a whole bunch of guys.
Jacqueline Tremblay would probably come on too. You know, he's always with Joe. Jacqueline Tremblay. He'd probably come on. He's always hanging out with. Yeah, he's hanging out. He hangs out a lot with Joe Ferraldo now. Not Joe Ferraldo, really? Joe Rico.
He used to be Regine's second trainer, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joe Rico's doing really good in the real estate business. Boy, did he get out at the right time. Boy, oh boy. Do you know that Joe Rico, what he did to me one day? So I don't know where I was. All I know is that I was penniless, broke. Yeah. But somehow, I don't know where it was, but there were a bunch of horsemen all around. We were talking or something, and I don't remember. All I remember was that I had no money. And Joe Rico just walked over to me and he says, "Larry, I'll see you." And he had either $100 or $200 bills, fully just stuck in my pocket. He says, "Take care of yourself." What a nice thing. What a nice guy.
Joe's a great guy.
Good guy. I remember
his stepson's doing pretty good too.
Oh, the kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember his George Brennan, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember his father, Joe Rico's father, had a Italian
restaurant.
Yeah, Monticello, yeah. And
Rico's.
I think he grew up in Yonkers, because I had a couple of friends of mine from Yonkers, a couple of wise guys that came up from Yonkers and in the Bronx, and I made a whole big deal. I must have brought 10 of them up to Joe Rico's father's restaurant, and he made a whole meal for them, and they haven't seen each other in a long, long time. And Yeah, Joe's a good guy. I'm glad he's doing well in the real estate business. And boy, he got out at the right time. He did really, really good. Top driver too. Good driver. I think he still drives once a year or something in some kind of race or something.
Occasionally.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah. Well, just be careful.
Now I'll tell you, like, I do the show with Trade Martin, and where I met Trade Martin was at Rico's in Monticello. That was where the first time that I met him. Trade was doing a charity event up there for Preston Burris's daughter, who at that point had cancer. Excuse me?
Silk stockings.
Yep. That Silk Stockings came on a little bit later, but
that was Preston Burris.
This was early 70s, and Trade was doing a benefit up there to raise money for their daughter with cancer at that point. So
here's a from Rob. I raced at Rockingham once. Joe was in the race. I knew right away I had no chance. Joe, you're a great guy. You all are. Well, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that. Yeah, Rockingham was a good time.
I was at Rockingham once. The winter was so cold. It was just as cold up there, and the wind it was in Monticello. I left there right away. Gagliotti wanted me to go up there.
When the Meadowlands first opened up, the Meadowlands, the wind going down that backside was so strong. Yeah. I mean, that wind would hit you. And I always wore glasses like what you're wearing right now, Larry. That's what I wore. I basically switched to goggles because that wind was so strong. It felt like your eyeballs were going to go through the back of your head.
Yeah. They freeze.
Rick says, what a crazy life. Hope we all get out in one piece. Yeah. Rick, I'm going to play a song for you at the end of this thing.
It's getting late.
No, not late, but this is the perfect, what a crazy life. I hope we all get out. I'm going to play a song for you at the end of this thing. So stay tuned and watch for the song at the end. I have two songs. One was written for me. It's getting late. and this one. Larry, didn't Yonkers experiment? Well, here he is here. Didn't Yonkers experiment with mile and 16th races? Yes. And now somebody told me to have 5 8-mile races at the Meadowlands.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had 1 or 2 over the last weekend, so it was like a cavalry charge. So
here's a guy that says, speaking of Walter Case, what a shame what happened to Tim Case. What happened to Tim Case?
Tim Case committed suicide.
He did?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he hurt himself in the barn, one of the farms.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a shame. Jeez. I'll tell you. Your health is in my prayers, Larry. Well, thank you, Brooklyn. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. Now, it's been an hour and almost an hour and a half. I'm going to, unless you want to talk about something else, Freddie or Joe, I'm going to end it and play this song. But I want you to hear the song. You going to stay on and hear it?
I always stay on. You know that.
All right.
I love music as much as you.
I'll let you delete me when you want to.
No. I want you to hear this song.
Freddie, 1 minute.
Here it is.
It went down.
Here it is. You listening?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're happy and sometimes you're sad, but the world goes round, and sometimes you lose every nickel you've had, but the world goes round. Sometimes your dreams get broken in pieces, but that doesn't alter a thing. Take it from me, there's still gonna be a summer, a winter, a fall, and a spring, and sometimes a friend starts treating you bad. But the world goes round, and sometimes your heart breaks with a deafening sound. Somebody loses and somebody wins, and one day it's kicks, then it's kicks in the shins. But the planet spins and the world goes round and round. But the world goes round. But the world goes round. Sometimes your dreams get broken in pieces, but that doesn't matter at all. Take it from me, there's still gonna be a summer, a winter, a spring, and a fall. And sometimes a friend starts treating you bad, but the world goes round, and sometimes your heart breaks with a deafening sound. Somebody loses and somebody wins, and one day it's kicks, then it's kicks in the shins. But the planet spins and the world goes round and round and around and round and round. The world goes round and round
Music is what kept me alive through all of them bad days, Joe.
Liza Minnelli.
If it wasn't for music,
You're right.
I could be in serious trouble and walk into a nightclub and listen to music, and I wouldn't even be thinking about that. There's 5 guys out that door looking to kill me.
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
be
know.
thinking. And that's the only thing. My whole life, every single night, and even in my barn, I had speakers with Sinatra and Shirley Bassey, Tony Bennett playing. All the kids that work for me will tell you that.
I got where I work now on the weekends, my ice cream Italian ice place. It's at a farmer's market, a big farmer's market. I got the 60s music going all day long, loud. And it keeps me going.
That song is so true that the world goes round. So you just got to keep right on going.
It
You know,
certainly does.
it's so true. And my other song that Alfred wrote, it's getting
It's
late.
getting late. I
Yeah,
like that song.
a lot of people like that song.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry, what did you think about the song that Trade and myself did, the Roosevelt Raceway song?
I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you something about Trade. Trade is one of the most talented guys I know. He writes. He must have wrote 1,000 songs, and this is before you, Freddie, I think, because this is in the 50s and the 60s. Trade Martin was an unbelievable performer and singer. He had a band. He'd go on at 9 o'clock and get off at 3. And every musician in his band had to take a bathroom break, so he would play without the drummer for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and he would go on one song after another nonstop. and he wrote many songs, and I have albums full of what he wrote. It's amazing to me that he didn't become like a Neil Diamond or a Bobby Darin or something like that.
I don't think he wanted it, but he also was nominated for 13 or 14 Clio Awards for best commercials.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know that, and Craig is amazing with the talent that he has. Just totally amazing.
I brought him 2 or 3 things to do for a friend of mine, and he was good. And then I used to have my parties every year. I'd have a party for all my cousins, relatives, friends, 300-400 people every year. I'd have it. I call it a cousins party. Then cousins and friends party, but I always had 300-400 people.
I'm going to have to send you the clip that we did when I was running for the presidency of the USTA back in 2017. We did a spoof video. We had Jackie Lee's son, Randy, call the race, and it was a race for the presidency of the USTA, and it had myself, Jason Settlemore, Russ Williams, Joe Panaccio, and Ryan Macedoni, and basically it was called as a race, and Trade basically put everything together. You got the race going, you got our heads popping up. It was funny as hell.
Will you have that on tape or something?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. You'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah, we'll play it. We'll play it. Hey, listen.
It was funny as hell. It was really funny.
Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Because my dog, he's scared to death, and I have the window open. He's looking out, but it's raining like crazy, and I can't have him on my lap much longer. But if I put him down, he shakes. So
do what you got to do.
Yeah. So we've been on for an hour and a half. And thank you both for helping me out again. And Freddie, I'll talk to you in a day or 2. And Joe, the same thing. Joe?
Larry, great being here, and thanks for having me.
Take care,
I'm glad that you're here, because I'm going to tell you something. Once that bill passes, I'm going to become your best friend, because I'm going to be calling you all the time for a job.
We're going to be looking for a job.
I hope that.
We'll be the best 2 grooms that they ever saw.
I hope that bill passes for you.
Yeah,
Freddie,
I'm going to tell you this is the last story I'm going to say. We're in this bar one day, and we're sitting at a table. I'm with Billy Meyer, my father, and I think that was the 3 of us. And so people are hearing us talking about horses and everything like that. And so they come over and like, "Oh, are you guys from the Roosevelt Raceway? And are you guys drivers and trainers and stuff like that?" Billy Meyer goes, "No, we're the best grooms there." They left us alone for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Okay. See my dog? See my dog?
Yep.
That's Buddy.
Hey, pretty boy.
He's scared to death. All right, Freddie, I'll talk to you in a day or 2. Joe,
Okay.
Same thing. Your dad's good? That's good. Tell your dad I said hello.
Thank you, Larry.
I'm going to play the other song.
It's getting late.
It's getting late. Freddie, I'm not
All
going to. You can hang up yourself, because I know, Freddie, you're not into this stuff. Freddie, thanks. Thanks, Freddie. I'll talk to you.
Thank you, Larry. Joe,
right.
A pleasure.
Take care, Freddie.
All right, Joe, I know you're going to listen to it. So
I always listen.
where the hell is it? Here it is. Listen to this.
Dump those grudges, ditch those judges. They're just weighing you down. Drop the haters, procrastinators, 'cause one man's smile is just another one's frown. When it's time for the end, ain't no warning, my friend. One day you're here, next stop the pearly gates. So listen close to what I'm saying. Lighten up, it's getting late. Dump collections, self-reflections, they're just covered in dust. Why obsess, worry or stress? Just ask yourself, What's the fuss when your doctor calls you on a Sunday afternoon? Gonna be a blue Monday, you'll be howling at the moon. You know you never can cheat fate. Lighten up, it's getting late. Forget bling and glitter, text and Twitter. Don't need it to make my case. Say it old school, face to face. I dump the users, soul abusers, turn and walk away. Give yourself a kick in the ass, then raise your glass. Let's toast to the past and make the most of today. Keep the faith, rise above, do the things that you love. Find a reason every day to celebrate. So listen close to what I'm saying. Lighten up, it's getting late. Live it full, life goes fast. You're carrying around too much dead weight. All the simple things are all that matter. Lighten up, it's getting late. Oh, what the hell? IGL. Oh, lighten up. It's getting late.
That's your alma mater, Larry. Take care.